October 7, 2023. SuperNova Festival Massacre. A Canon report. The SuperNova Festival Massacre in Israel on October 7, 2023 is a tragic testament to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestinians. It starkly portrays that this clashes between the civilized and the uncivilized societies that have been in continuous conflict over centuries. Amit Halevi, Likud member of Knesset, says the war is being fought over Islamic legal theory of Dar ul Islam, House of Islamic Law, and Dar ul Harb, House of War. In Dar ul Harb, a perpetual state of jihad, a holy war, is imposed by the law of Islam. In a footage released recently, Hamas militants recorded themselves calling the kidnapped Jewish women as Sabaya, which means sex slave, spoil of war. This massacre of innocent lives, who were there just to party, has been caught up in what many today may call as resistance to the colonial state of Israel. The festival, where close to 4,000 people gathered to celebrate under the theme of love and music, turned into a book of horror and tragedies. Authorities report that over 364 people were killed and 40 were taken to Gaza as hostages. 7 months later, Canam Network visited the site of the Nova Festival. The festival site is now a memorial for the hostages and deceased. Here, we met Noor, Malka, and Shahi Cohen, two survivors of the massacre who lost their friend, 20-year-old Nama Mualim, while trying to escape the militants from Gaza. We also met Rami Davidiyan, a hero who, along with his team, saved over 750 lives at the site.
We came to here for a party, for a festival. It was a big festival, 3,000 people. People that just wanted to camp to dance,
love each other, and
to enjoy.
We found the parallel universe. From love and dance to murder and kidnap and kill. The most horrible thing in the world, I think.
So what happened at the Nova Festival? On October 7, in a forest outside Re'im, near Highway 232, militants from Gaza stumbled onto the site after loud missile explosions, which were unusual for the IDF on Shabbat. For those familiar with raves, the morning set typically has minor attendance after a night of dancing, drugs, and intoxication. By morning, most people have crashed after a long night of partying, leaving only a few who are still under the influence. Around 6:30 a.m., multiple rockets and sirens were heard, and the security began helping festival-goers leave the campsites. For the next few hours, humanity took a dark turn. A tale of murder, mass rape, body mutilation, chaos, and distress. Stories that will haunt the minds of Israelis and everyone who celebrates life, family, music, and the pursuit of happiness. Bombs were dropped inside the bomb shelters to kill the hiding innocent festival goers. The escaping cars were riddled with bullets. The remaining survivors will live to tell these stories for future generations. Rami Davidiyan told us how he spent 72 hours at the scene, saving lives and later collecting body parts to help with the burial of the deceased, an essential element of Jewish tradition.
Yelling out to the skies, why is this happening to me? Why is all this on my shoulders? And he decided that it was time to go and collect up the various bodies and body parts that he had left behind. He went, and that's what he did. And from then, from midnight until 7 in the morning, he collected those body parts and had to find matches. Right? He was trying to figure out whose hand belonged to which arm, and which arm belonged to which body, and so on and so forth. And that's what he did, playing like a Lego.
In his first escape attempt, he held 14 kids in his car and drove them to safety. He made several attempts over the next 24 to 48 hours to rescue several hundreds. Later, Rami's phone received thousands of messages from festival goers begging to be saved from the terrorist attack.
And then his phone gets thousands of messages on take a look at the date, the 7th of October.
Rami recounts an unsuccessful attempt to rescue a girl named Amit, playing a game of hot and cold, just like Marco Polo, honking to find her location. By the time he reached her, the militants had captured her and taken her to Gaza. In another instance, showing extreme presence of mind, Rami disguised himself as Arabic-speaking Abu Rami and tricked a group of Hamas militants into believing he was one of their own. He convinced them to hand over the kidnapped girl to him, claiming the IDF was nearby. This false statement saved the girl's life.
He speaks Arabic. Rami speaks Arabic. He called himself Abu Rami. He yelled to the Hamas members that were taking her. He says, there are soldiers. He says in Arabic. He says, there are soldiers behind us. They're about to get us. Give me the girl and run for your lives. They gave him the girl. He put her in the car, saved her.
Rami saw the bodies of partygoers.
Men and women, naked, body, parts of the bodies scattered. As a father, he couldn't live to see kids like this, and so he covered them over. He said a prayer and went off to go and save anybody that was alive elsewhere.
Here is Rami meeting Abu Mahir, a Bedouin Muslim who Rami saved on October 7, 2023. On May 5, 2024, we also met Noor and Shahi, who came to commemorate their lost friend, 28-year-old Nama Mualim, killed by Hamas militants. Nama died on their lap while they tried to escape in a car. Shahi shares that when they heard the missile explosions, they were confused. They decided to leave the festival site in a group of cars initially, planning to continue the party at a beach, their house, or in Tel Aviv, not knowing the terror that would unfold in the next few hours.
There was I think it's 8 or 7 terrorists in the car, and they tried to chase us. And after 1 minute, we stopped to hear the bullets.
And I found that Nama, that I sit near me, is not not leaning down. She's dead on my leg.
When asked how they feel now, 7 months later, they say,
Very hard. It's very difficult because we came to here for a party, for a festival. It was a big festival.
100 kilometers away from the Nova Festival, in the heart of Tel Aviv, at the National Museum of Arts, lies a series of encampments and art pieces dedicated to the families of the hostages. Here, we met Menashe, the uncle of 34-year-old Eglana Bobot, a DJ and one of the leading organizers of the Nova Festival. He is now a hostage in Gaza. Menashe has been visiting this encampment since October 7. He's here every day, all day, as a sign of protest, awaiting the return of his nephew. He often participates in public gatherings every Saturday in this neighborhood of Tel Aviv. He says Hamas mutilated the bodies of the victims by chopping off their ears, feet, hands. He believes this was the worst day for the Jews since 1973, when Egypt launched a war by surprising Israel when it was distracted on the holiest day of religious observance in the Jewish calendar. Even universities in the West have become a focal point in this Israel-Palestine war. Students on campuses like Columbia, McGill, University of Toronto, and Berkeley, under the impression of being anti-war, are demanding universities cut ties with the State of Israel. Is this a morally justifiable resistance? In fact, it is a brutal testament to the horrors inflicted by the existence of numerous big and small, uncivilized death cults operating around Israel's border. Slogans of "From river to the sea, Palestine will be free" on campuses and elsewhere in the West are now very common to hear from anti-Israel protesters.
But hell, Hitler, he's a G, he's a gangster. I wish he made it all you guys, bro. And the world would have been a better place. If you guys were gone, the world would have been a better place. You guys would run the whole world.
What they imply is that the State of Israel, which currently exists between that very Jordan River and Mediterranean Sea, will be erased and replaced by Palestine. Hamas militants, who proudly boasted on their GoPro cameras, created propaganda material of what will happen to Jews who are living between the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. Video of Shani Locke, was celebrated at the streets of Gaza, whose body was recently discovered by the IDF after its operation in Rafah last week. And the state of innocent festival goers, both dead and alive, bear witness to the tragedies and monstrosities inflicted by just one such death cult, Hamas, and their memories will haunt future generations. Now, are similar things happening elsewhere? Here is a mural in support of Mahsa Amini in Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, a mural made up of deceased on October 7th in support of Mahsa Amini. 2,000 kilometers east of Jerusalem, in Tehran, a regime reigns with similar terror in a country that fights similar battles. Mahsa Amini was arrested for opposing mandatory hijab, and her death sparked protests against the regime across Iran. Her death ignited the Women, Life, Freedom movement to end oppression against women in Iran. During the terror reign of ISIS, thousands of Yazidi girls, a 6,000-year-old minority group, were enslaved in Iraq and Syria. In Kurdish area of Iraq, an advertisement of 12-year-old non-virgin girl being sold for $13,000 US. In Pakistan, Asia Bibi, a Christian woman who spent 8 years on death row under Pakistan's blasphemy laws. She was granted asylum in Canada in 2019. In Kashmir, India, in 1990, Girija Tikku was abducted by 5 men, one of them being her colleague, who tortured her, raped her, and then brutally murdered her by cutting her alive through her vagina with a mechanical saw. During the same time, in Kashmir, B.K. Ganju was hiding in a rice container when terrorists shot him and forced his wife to eat blood-soaked rice. Then between 2008 to 2010, grooming gangs run by Pakistani British Muslims targeted hundreds of white working-class girls from vulnerable backgrounds and lacked parental support were made sex trafficking victims. Our human story is filled with Nova Festival-like instances over thousands of years in many societies and different locations. The festival tragedy reminds us that even in 2024, thousands of men, women, and children still live to eradicate all things happy from the world. And what remains today is the sorrow of parents who often visit the festival site, lighting candles, cleaning decorative stones, crying, and sharing stories of their loved ones. Some parents and family members remain desperate to bring their children home. Posters of Bring Them Home can be seen all around the cities, on walls of bars, public toilets, electric poles, roadside trees, and infrastructure. The festival massacre has left a deep wound on the minds and hearts of young Israelis. Young and old still gather in pubs and bars on a typical evening in Tel Aviv, feeling subdued in expressing happiness, only to be reminded that some of their friends are yet to come home. As life goes on, we must view this incident, like many others in history, as a clash bigger than it seems. A clash of competing civilizations where the winner will determine the rules by which we get to live our lives. It is not very complicated, but it requires a deep understanding of the two religions, their two worldviews, and their ways of life. Ayaan Hirsi Ali, in her book, Pray, Immigration, Islam, and the Erosion of Women's Rights, makes a sharp commentary on the 2015-16 New Year's Eve assaults of 1,200 women in a single night, and makes a casual connection between increased sexual coercion and rape in countries like Germany and the influx of young male migrants from North Africa and the Middle East. Today, the Western governments lack the resolve to understand their adversaries, their motives, and their processes, such as the cops in the case of British grooming gangs, who failed to clamp down on its activity, largely out of fear of being condemned as racist. Canadians and the world can't stay numb to the realities of the Middle East, with mass and unchecked migration of immigration and refugee, deep policing, and path of least resistance has made things worse for the Canadian Jews.
Long live Antifa! There is only one solution!
Be it University of Toronto,
Guys, no!
Hey, I'll trade. How about that? I'll trade.
Vancouver Art Gallery's Sammy Doan video of praising Hamas,
Heroic and brave action on October 7th, and they said, long live October 7th! And we say today, long live October 7th!
the Canadian Jews have a lot to worry about. Our public institution can't be hijacked and transformed into a bleeding ground for hatred towards the Jews and the State of Israel. It is the presence and functioning of these death cults that are responsible for the plight of innocent Arabs. This fight is for Western values. Meanwhile, our sympathies for the loss of innocent lives on both sides.